Good afternoon, everyone. We are continuing our celebration of Black History Month. And what better way to celebrate than having with us Brian Brooks, who is co owner and president of EE Ward, which many have heard, but many haven't heard of. I feel like we've done a great job of bringing some folks out of the quiet land and into the light. But EE Ward is the oldest continuously operating Black owned business in the country. So, welcome, Brian. So great to have you.
Good to see you, and thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Glad to pull you out of the hard work of being a business owner. All right. So, I'm going to ask you a question that I have asked many of our guests that I think really gives us an opportunity to know you from a more authentic space. So tell me a tiny moment that you're quietly proud of that most people wouldn't know.
A tiny moment I'm most proud of. Life is a journey, right? And we're always overcoming hurdles and obstacles, and the fear factor. And as I like to say, getting uncomfortable, because as many people you'll read and you hear about, they say nothing happens when you're in a stage of comfort. No progress happens when you're in a stage of comfort, right? It's only uncomfort. Mm-hmm. But so my tiny moment I share with my wife, Dominique, several years ago. It's been maybe 7-8 years now. About 10 years ago, she started running marathons. And so she was running about 2-3 marathons a year. And she said to me, like, you should do one with me. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm built for running from here down to the end of the, end of the driveway. That's about it.
Okay, that's it.
She's like, no. So, so she said, okay, well, maybe let's do a half. I'll do a half with you. We'll do a half marathon together. I said, okay. And, and so we did it. But the thing about it wasn't we did the nationwide children's half marathon, and it wasn't the actual marathon itself. It was the journey we went through doing it, and not really being, that wasn't really my world, that mm-hmm. wasn't, and but the process, so mm-hmm. she took me, signed me up for her running group. All of a sudden I started getting these emails about, okay, this is your schedule for today. You're going to run these, it's basically I'm it's the virtual training is now kicking in, and so that we started out about 6 to 8 months prior, and went through this progression of, you go from, 1 mile to 1.5 to 2 miles a day. You can work yourself up to, to running this race. And we did it. And I survived. I made it. I'm here to talk about it. But like I said, it was a tiny thing, but the big wins were, it made you really, as they say, it's cliche, but respect the process. Mm. It really, doing something like that really made you respect the process of, like, okay, this is not just like, I'm gonna wake up today, put my New Balance or my Nikes on, and I'm just gonna go out. It's not. That's not what happens here. You work up to this, which is life. I mean, life is, baking a cake or anything. I mean, there's a process to go through. So, and the fact that, we did that journey together, and, it was definitely tested me because, on that Sunday, trying to hit those 13.1 miles. I mean, there was moments I was like, I can't, I don't know if I can do this, and really, as luck would have it, that marathon usually happens, like, I believe it's end of October, beginning of November for the nationwide children's marathon. So wouldn't you know it, that we've been training, it was October, you're training, it's 30, 40 degrees out, 45 degrees on average that time of the year. Mm-hmm. So why on that Sunday was it 70 degrees that Sunday?
Yes.
One of those anomalies, which you think which sounds great, but it's not great when you've been, kind of training in this cooler weather.
Oh. So were you like hot?
Because you're dressed, like I said, the day before it was like 40, it was like 50.
Oh yeah, because you start in the morning, so there was
right. You start like 6, you start mm-hmm. at 7 o'clock in the morning. you're all bundled up, and all of a sudden, it's like by the time we hit that turn on the Drexel and Bexley, where Columbus School for Girls is. I mean, you're like, I gotta take this stuff off. I'm burning up.
You were taking off your stuff while you were running?
Well, because you start out and it was cool
Okay.
before, and you got tights on and long. You're thinking it's going to be a 45-degree day or whatever.
You broke it down.
But no, needless to say, my embarrassing moment was I started cramping up all bad because it was so warm, but she helped me tough through it. I made it to the 13.1 finish line. I got my medal, and that's it.
Are you ever going to do it again?
No mas.
Oh, well, that's interesting. We got to bring Dominique on to get her version of it.
Yeah, she'll have it. Yeah.
Husband and wives do. There might be a slightly different version that she'll share. Nonetheless, it's glad to hear that you made it through, and thank you for sharing that. And I love that you referenced one of my favorite quotes is "Fall in love with the process of becoming great,"
Right.
which especially in today's world where success appears to be super microwaved based on social media.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, which leads me to the question, which I have not had a chance to ask you this myself before today, and I'm dying to know. Tell me about how you got to, speaking of process of becoming great, you are co-owner of E.E. Ward, as I mentioned, which is the oldest continuously operating Black-owned business in the country, but you're not the founder.
No,
And so I can't imagine that when you were a little kid, you were like, when I grow up, I want to purchase what will ultimately be the oldest continuously operating Black-owned business in the country. So give us a little bit of your origin story and how you got to this important role that you're operating in today.
Sure. Well, the company was founded in 1881 by John T. Ward, and little beknownst to me, though, the aspirations that didn't necessarily truly start when I was a young child, but the impressions of it started when I was a young child.
Okay.
And a quick story is, my coming to be involved or awareness of the, Ward transfer line, which was called for many years, and E.E. Ward Transfer and Storage, is that Eldon Ward, who was John T. Ward's great-great-grandson, ran the company from 1945 to 1995. 50 years Eldon ran the company. It was a stalwart for the company, led it through, a very pivotal period in this country. But the thing about Eldon Ward is my connection to Eldon Ward was that my father, William Brooks, Judge Brooks, was a long time, practiced law in Columbus, Ohio for 50 years, was a peer of Eldon's, and over the years became Eldon's lawyer for the company, and he represented the company for about 20 some years. And so through that relationship and friendship that developed between them, and again, we're talking about Black men. You got to think about it, Dr. Joy. I got to take you back. I mean, we're talking about Black men. We're talking the 50s, the 60s, Black professional men. I think back to my father's, I still have his picture when he graduated law school at Ohio State in 1937. And there's like 2 Black people in the picture, I mean, so we're talking, 50s, 60s. So the Black men of professional or entrepreneurs, I mean, they really, they stuck together, as far as representation for legal work, dental work, dentist work, medical work. I mean, it was that community. It was very strong in that regard. And we know why. We know the reasons that were surrounding a lot of that. They really had no choice many times. So, but the point is, so my father represented Eldon for those years. He developed a great, phenomenal friendship with and my mother Mary and his wife Elsie. And so when I was born, my parents asked Eldon to be my godfather. So that was where that connection first started.
Wow.
And so as growing up as a young man, I was aware of the company. My mom would take me by the obviously by his office on East Main Street, or holidays we'd go by their house on Gears Avenue over off of Livingston. So I was in his world, so to speak. But then where we spent more time together was when I was in middle school. Eldon's passion was swimming. He was an avid swimmer, and that's how he started his day every morning before he went to the office. Is he would go to the what at that time was called the East Side YMCA, which is now called the Eldon and Elsie Ward Family Center. But he would go there 5:30 in the morning and swim his laps. And so he would pick me up before. So he got me in this routine of picking me up, and he basically taught me how to swim. Took me to the Y with him, in the mornings when I was in middle school, and he'd go in there, he'd do his swimming, he'd put his suit coat on, his tie, and his Chrysler, and drop me back off at my house. My mom would take me to school, and then he'd go on to work. So we developed that that closeness to that way. But I never worked in the business. I went to college, went into business and marketing, and had my own entrepreneurial desires and efforts and things that I did throughout. But there became a time around 1999 when Eldon's niece Dolores White was running the business, because he had retired in 1995, like I mentioned earlier, and he was living in the Phoenix, Arizona area. And so they were at a crossroads, which we know many family businesses have those crossroads where the succession plan is not there. And in this case, Eldon and Elsie, they didn't have any children of their own. And like I said, I was his godson. But and Dolores, she had put lots of years in and really had gave a lot of herself to the company. And her and my mother would walk 3 times a week around Franklin Park. They do a lunchtime walk. And so one of those walks, she said, Mary, we got to do something. I don't know how much longer I can keep the business going. And, Eldon's retired. So that led to my mother calling me and saying, I think you need to make a phone call to Eldon. I think you need to do something because, they don't really have a plan for that next chapter for the business. So that led to,
Okay, hold on. Before you tell me from there, I want to go back real quick. You said that you did some entrepreneur stuff yourself, but the first question I'm curious is, did your time with the Wards inspire that entrepreneurial journey that you went on and going into business marketing, or no, or what was it?
Yeah, I being aware of the company with that, I was surrounded by Eldon. My father was he was a lawyer who practiced law, had his own law practice, and also had many other positions politically as well too. My mother worked for the city, long-time Columbus police officer for 25 years. But my parents had a real estate company. They had rental property that I helped them manage when I got older. So I was surrounded by a mindset of getting out there and hustling, making things work, don't complain, go out and make a change. That's so I guess to your point, that's the folks that I was surrounded by people like that. I had my uncle was a dentist, went to Howard, so my point, I was surrounded by just a lot
Absolutely. By black
excellence, black men who were they were dentists, lawyers, sold real estate. Hey man, there was no time for excuses,
right?
Or actually I should say no time for pity parties.
Right.
It was because my father would tell me about. My father would tell me, and this sounds like, to me, it sounds like so far-fetched, but he would hop the train on the weekends when he was going to Ohio State Law School, go to New York and wait tables on the weekend, and then come back on the train.
What?
And go back to be back in time for school. So like,
wait a minute, why New York? Why? What made?
Because the money you could make, because the tips.
Oh, okay, the tips were better.
So good.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that ain't hustle. I don't know what is. Okay.
So when you're growing up around people like that, and Eldon and his great grandfather John T. and because I left out, John T. Ward. Small side note, was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. Helping people, because John T. Ward was born a free man in Virginia, and so and he and he came to he later came to the Columbus area in the mid 1800s. So what I'm saying is like, having those kinds of figures around you,
Yeah, absolutely.
you like, I mean, there's not much excuses are going to be
Yeah, you
tolerated.
better want something. So what did you think you were, did you have a dream that when you were going to go to school and do X?
I had a dream. I mean, I always wanted to like, I mean, business was just in my mind to own a business, operate a business. Like I said, I grew up with my parents owning a rental property, which eventually became something that I managed and then took over from them. Then I had a business partner, and then we started. We got into real estate, and we did some commercial development, on a small level, commercial
Mhm.
developments and reselling and rental type things and commercial leasing. So um, it was just kind of I had that desire,
And you
that
didn't know exactly
entrepreneurship
what.
desire.
You just knew you were going to be doing business, being entrepreneurial,
Right,
and
right,
probably something at least that you had gotten exposed to through
yeah,
your. Okay.
exactly,
All right.
yeah.
So then fast back forward. Sorry, I had to go get that context
Yeah,
for
no. So to pick back up, so when when it came to me through my mother that there was really no plan for the business, and knowing the story, it's like, man, it's a shame, like, because at this point in time, so the purchase took place in 2000, the acquisition took place in 2001. At that time, E.E. Ward was 120 years old. Okay, so knowing that having these conversations and that started in end of 1999, well, actually started in year 2000. It's like, okay, this is it's kind of a big deal in some regard that there's a heck of a legacy here, a lot of
Mhm.
goodwill, um, and so went had with several flights and several trips out to visit with him and understand what he was trying to do with the business, what his plans were, what his goals were, what his hopes were. And then myself and my business partner at the time, we purchased the business from him, and that deal was finalized April of 2001.
Ooh, it's
April
almost your
2001.
anniversary.
Huh?
It's almost your anniversary.
Oh, well, yes, it is. But this is our 145th year
Hmm. Hmm.
of continuous operation.
Which is kind of a big deal. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. So tell me about from taking it over from there. Obviously, it's one thing, we've done some other sessions on mergers and acquisitions. And, first of all, that's sort of a newer concept for the larger world to know about. Some of them still don't, but M&A is becoming more and
Mhm.
more talked about, especially as the boomer generation is sunsetting. Um, and regardless, any merger acquisition type of experience has its challenges, but this, I wouldn't say had additional challenges, but certainly some pressure, maybe some intensity, considering the legacy, the friendships, all that was involved. So tell me about what it was like taking over. How did you guys go through that transition, and what you've done with the company since then?
Yeah, no, I got to tell you, it was a lot of challenges in the beginning. I mean, granted, even though you were acquiring, an existing business, um, the business again, there wasn't really a succession plan in place, and so it was really at a point where the older members of the family were really running and caretaking the business.
Mhm.
And when that typically happens, what do you typically find? You find a lack of reinvestment. You find a lack of R&D, or a lack of strategic growth and development. I mean, we walked into my partner Otto. So Otto Beatty the third. We grew up friends, classmates, childhood friends, and so we purchased the business together originally. And I mean, we walked into like it was like walking in back in time, because we walked into a place and there was typewriters,
It
and
was
this is
old school.
old school, right? The phones, the phone might work, it might not work, so, so I mean, I looked at him and we were like, man, we need Like who do you know? I mean, we started calling friends we knew who were in IT or sold phone systems. I mean, it was like, we need this stuff
Overhaul.
like
First of
now.
all, we need to overhaul.
Right. So, I mean, so we really had to just be resourceful. And like I said, calling on friends and others that may have been, selling IT services or phone services or computer services, copier services, whatever it may be, we had to make those phone calls because I mean, him and I being younger at that time, I mean, he was at that, I had just, he was an associate. I don't know if he was at a law firm at that time, practicing law. I had just recently left. I had worked for several years at Ameritech New Media, which was bought by AT&T. So I was in the marketing and sales unit there, worked between Columbus and Chicago. So my point is, we came from larger environments where like we're used to.
Yeah,
okay, there's computers, there's copiers, there's there's telephone systems, and so we were like, whoa, like it was definitely a shock to us. Like, hey man, we can't even function. So we went through that in the first. That was step one, to get ourselves situated, get a payroll company and things of that nature going. Because the one thing we did, and I say this to any business owner. And it helped that I had a business partner who was a lawyer. I was also the son of a lawyer. So I knew enough to be dangerous to know that we both subscribe to the fact that we have to start off right. We have to, you got to be set up, get your business structure, get your certifications, take care of all the regulatory stuff, have your ducks in a row, go out and hire, first thing we probably did was hire a payroll service. Because why? What do you and I both know? Many businesses fail because of what catches them: lack of paying payroll taxes, lack of paying sales tax, these things that kind of just creep up on you. So we start at the gate square one, like we got to spend that money with the accountants, with even though he was a lawyer, we had a business lawyer anyway, because we wanted to be set up properly, in that regard. So that, I say that to anybody, it's money you don't want to spend, but it's money that you're going to save in the long run if you do it right in the beginning. But so that was really getting functioning. And I do have to remind you that I mentioned April 2001 to you, and I don't know if you recall what happened in September 2001. So we go in here, two guys who weren't from this industry, fresh off the block, per se, as far as of knowing what moving and storage. I mean, yeah, we had our ideas about business and running, we were steady, we knew we were level headed, but you go in there and then 7 months later, the world stops on September 11th. I mean, literally, I mean, we stop as a country, and, so that was our first, like, whoa, this is something we weren't knowing. This was not in the book. That was not in the business book. That was not included in that college course. That no professor taught you about how to navigate through that.
Right.
So so that was kind of like the first real challenge that came at us, obviously. But again, so obviously you progress over the years. Lots of trials and tribulations, but continue to just build on that base of a goodwill. We had to really reestablish the brand, reestablish the awareness, invest in equipment, trucks, things of that nature, become relevant again. Because for lack of better words, we had to reinvent the company, become relevant. Go back to customers that we may have had in the past that maybe we had lost. Just through attrition and whatnot, and lack of focus, and so it was really building blocks. It was building blocks, and spent many years doing that, and you're still doing it to this day. I mean, right. As they say, you grow or you die, and that's so true. I mean, we have to continue to try to grow, evolve, stay competitive. And I mean, like I said, it was obviously it was an everyday thing back then. It's an everyday thing now, but it was a different. It was obviously we're more established today, but that was really the first focus of those first couple of years was really getting ourselves established that way, or I should say, reestablishing the business.
Mhm. I'm curious because mergers and acquisitions are becoming more popular and not everyone has the experience of going through that journey. What are some key lessons you learned other than the one you just shared, which is make sure you're tight from a structured perspective? What are some other lessons that you learned that you think others should be aware of when considering an acquisition, be it of a family-owned business or otherwise, that would be critical in the success?
Well, obviously, an acquisition started me off on this journey, but we've made acquisitions over the years of smaller moving companies that we've
Mhm.
rolled into Ward, whether it was for talent, whether it was for strategic growth opportunities. And our most recent acquisition, our largest acquisition, was made this past May. But so I mean, we've been acquiring over the years to continue to grow the company. And we've also done organic growth and organic expansion as well too. But there's so many. I mean, lessons to learn. I mean, a lot of lessons are obviously when you make an acquisition, it's culture. You're acquiring someone else's culture.
Yeah.
Is it going to fit with your culture?
Mm.
Is their culture better than your culture? Do they have things that maybe they do better that you can learn from? Just because you're acquiring them doesn't mean that they have to march the way you march per
Mhm,
se.
mhm,
They may handle a certain process a better way than what you do it, have a better mousetrap, so to speak.
mhm.
But culture is huge. That's something we really pride ourselves on. Obviously, with a 145-year legacy. I mean, there's a huge legacy here. A lot of culture, a lot of servicing the customer, a lot of our focus on the customer experience, which is really one of our biggest our competitive advantages, I should say. It's the biggest competitive advantage we have is our customer service excellence. And so that being the case, you have to that's really important for me and for our team, because whether it's an acquisition or whether it's new people to the company, are they going to fit? you know uh, you know you know as with any business, transitioning people in or transitioning people out. I mean, sometimes people just things don't work out, whether it's acquiring talent or acquiring, another business. It always just doesn't fit. And you have to be prepared for that. You got to be prepared for that. You got to be prepared, especially in acquisition. I mean, you're going to lose people. You're going to
Mhm,
lose people in an acquisition,
mhm,
because people are used to a certain thing, a certain management style, or a certain manager, or a certain way that the other business did it, and it's not going to work well for everybody. That's just a reality. Uh, but you also hope the biggest thing though is you want to keep your customer base as strong as possible. So that's something that's a very important focus as well too, to not lose sight of that. And as far as the customers understanding who you are coming in, and introducing yourselves to them as well too.
So how do you know culture, as an industrial organizational psychologist and really being someone who focuses on the intersection of people and business, I feel like people fully underestimate culture on a regular basis. And I also understand it's a little bit harder to ascertain what culture really means or how to change it, especially. So how do you go about knowing or exploring the potential culture of a company you're looking at acquiring to even consider whether or not they're a good fit?
There's one thing I'll tell you: VOC, the voice of the customer. It's the voice of the customer. The customer will tell you what the culture is. So now, obviously in these days we have platforms, we have social media
Mhm.
platforms, we have Google reviews, Facebook, whatever it may be. I mean, you can tell a lot about a company by looking at what their customers say about them. I mean, it tells you the culture. I
Mhm.
mean, when I've looked at acquisitions here recently, you know, you look and you say, okay, you're like, man, this is a good company. You know, the everything under the hood looks good, but they may not be doing well in sales or this, that, and the other. And then you start looking at what's the customer experience, and the customer experience is less than satisfactory, or it's subpar. You say, okay, well, there's a problem, but then you say to yourself, but I can fix that. So that's called opportunity. That's because if you walked into a company, and from acquisition standpoint or whatever, and the service was great, the sales were the best sales ever. You're like, well, I don't know what more can I do here. Everything is fine. There's nothing to fix. And as you know, in M&A, many times you're looking for opportunities, whether it's something you bolt onto which you already have to make it better, or they have better processes, like I said, or you see an opportunity because maybe they are in a great logistical position, or they're positioned very well in the market, but they're not maximizing it. So, that's one thing I look at, very heavily, is what's the voice of the customer. What are people saying about that company? And that can tell you a whole lot.
So what would you say? There are several folks now getting into exploring purchasing a business, and rather than a merger, it's more of an acquisition, and for many of them, it's going to be their first.
Right.
So in that case, they're not necessarily merging it with an existing operation, but it's one that they're looking, because when we think about the racial wealth gap, I think M&A really shows a lot of promise for us being able to make any kind of dent, considering all that we're up against. And so, it's promising times, considering there'll be so many businesses going on the market as boomers continue to exit. So for someone who's considering buying a business, to put themselves in a better position from a wealth and generational wealth perspective, what are things they should be considering from your perspective regarding what business to purchase, what industry to get in, anything that crosses your mind?
As we know, there's so many factors, but I think a couple of things that I think are, that are important. Are you doing it for the right reasons? Do you like the business? Do you like what the service it's providing? Does that give you some sense of joy? Because it can't just be just money. Because money will be up and money will be down. Money comes and goes. There's gonna be some great days and there'll be some tough days, right? But when those tough days come, are you there for the right reasons? And so I think about, when I say that, it makes you think about the long lineage of John T. Ward, his son William S. Ward, and then William S. Ward, son Edgar Earl Ward, and the list just went on, because these gentlemen again, John T. had just come from where he was taking slaves of freedom in his wagon up High Street 23, up Route 23, under the cover of night and things and whatnot, to his sons, grandsons, great-grandsons, dealing with the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1960s. There's many stories about E.E. Ward. Eldon was dispatching. He had men and trucks going out on a Wednesday, and that same Wednesday, there's articles in the Columbus Dispatch or Columbus Citizen Journal of about 40,000 Klan members marching down High Street. There's times, your business being protested or whatever. I'm saying that to say they had the passion. But what they all shared is they valued that service. They knew that need that they filled for their customers. And the one thing that was, I'm kind of, I'm not forgetting your question, but I'm getting to the point about, I'm getting to the point about, what they all had in common. So what makes 145 years happen? It's real simple. You show up. So they showed up every day, right? Sounds simple. So I go back to, you ask, well, what should you, that's what I'm saying. You need to buy something that you
that you
like,
can show up every day for.
that you're going to show up for every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not, it's not the job that you're working and you just call and say, and again, there's many levels. There could be the business that it could be sole proprietor, it could be two employees, it could be 200 employees, it could be 2,000, and there's different variations.
Mm-hmm.
We know that, and but even the person who has 2,000 employees, he may not be showing up physically on site, but they're showing up mentally, and they're like, what do we need to do next? Where do I need to expand to next? Where I need to, what am I going to, what's my next acquisition? What's my next, what's our next conquering task? So my point is, when I think back to those gentlemen and 365 days a year times 120, which is how long they took the legacy, they showed up every day. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be buying a business that you're willing, that you're going to show up for, mm-hmm. And like I said, it sounds so simple. But
no, here's what I'm thinking, and I would love your thoughts on this. We also know from, again, addressing the wealth, I don't like to say the negative, promoting our people into wealth. Yeah. We do have a ton of people who start businesses and start because they're passionate about the business or the product right. or service. However, though, that does, for our people, and I think people of culture in general, oftentimes lands us in a non-lucrative business yeah. as well. And so, yeah. As I'm listening to you, I 100% agree. It has to be a company you're willing to show up for, because I've done a lot of work with and am an elite performer myself. I know that the elite performers are going to show up and get it done no matter what. Not everybody's an elite performer, though. So then how do we balance the fact that, yes, it needs to be something you'll show up for every day, but it also does have to be something, it should be something that's going to be profitable.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing business as a hobby, which then in that case, let's call it a hobby, and you should probably just do it on the side and have a job. How do we balance looking for a business that will show up for with a business that actually is going to be lucrative?
Yeah, well, like they say, do you have a business or do you have a hobby? That's the classic cliche question that everyone hears in a business seminar or somewhere. But no, margin. Is it going to make money? Yes, it has to be a focus on that too. You have to understand, and that's where looking at businesses. There's businesses that are. I'm in transportation. Transportation, there's a lot of capital assets. There's a lot of overhead. There's a lot of costs. There's a lot of regulatory costs. Mm-hmm. It's like someone who goes into food service. A lot of regulation. You got to be compliant with. Got inspectors coming in. Got to have a. So there's. I think you have to look at a business and understand that. What's it going to take to run it too. From an workers' comp costs, the insurance costs, things of that nature. So that's obviously that I agree with you. That's hand in hand important to understand. Mm-hmm. And that's where people say, hey, that's where they say, a business plan. Do you have a business plan, or how much? Now, I will say this: people today, I think back to 25 years ago when we were assessing this whole. Do we do EE Ward? We went out, we hired a business consultant, and he ran performance for us and called up on the phone and got projection. He was doing his due diligence. How much does a box cost? How much, so that we were doing that. I will say today, thanks to our big friend, our new friend AI, there's a lot of help out there to say, so I say, there's no excuse today to not do your due diligence, because there's some phenomenal tools out there that can help you analyze quickly. You can ask about a certain kind of business and ask about, a pro forma or overhead costs, that kind of thing, so it's definitely true. Definitely true.
So was there a time in your work life, or maybe in your personal, because you were being a whole human, and I know you have children, so, and a wife, so you were wifing, lifing, and dadding, and all the things in between, all of this effort to continue this legacy. Tell me about a time when you maybe felt like you were going to quit. You just couldn't see the next step, and it might have been in the business, it might have been in your world, I don't know, but I think we all at least have one of these moments.
When I was gonna quit. Um, that's a good question. That's a good question. So
Other than before you finish that marathon you got yourself into.
well, excuse me, sorry. I will say that there was a couple times that, and I don't really know what quit means per se. I
Yeah, maybe
mean,
that word doesn't resonate, but
because
maybe that it got really heavy is a better way to say it.
it got heavy. It got heavy. 9/11 got heavy because that was an unknown. Where it really, excuse me, where it really got, another area where I point to it really got heavy for us, because our business, being in home moving, we do household moves, we do commercial office moves, we do warehousing. So where it got heavy was 2008, 2009. The mortgage crash, right? Because it really it changed. I mean, people stopped. Excuse me. People stopped buying houses, and mortgages were falling. People's mortgages were falling off the cliff, and the balloon just busted, right? And so, we were really looking. We were looking, and fortunately for us, we had some diversification. I mean, I had a lot of peers at that time that were so heavy, like in corporate relocation,
Mm-hmm.
that when 2008, 2009 happened, I mean, everything just stopped. And same thing happened to them as well too with 9/11.
Uh-huh.
But it was such a huge corporate impact. But I will say that that 2008, 2009, because we kind of like got desperate and started getting into other lines of business that wasn't really our traditional lines of business in transportation. And it was more of like, well, we need revenue. We need revenue. In hindsight, I would have stayed the course more and say, you know what, let's just keep doing what we do. Keep focus on doing it better, and let's just try to do more of it,
Mm-hmm.
but and not go out of our
Core.
where we're really good at things.
Mm-hmm.
Our what'd you say?
Your core offerings.
Yeah, our core offerings. And again, you want to be diversified, but there's
So what
also
did you do? What did you go into that maybe you wouldn't have?
so
No,
we got off into, like, so even though we're in transportation, we got off into like freight. We were transporting pallets of uh, beverage pallets and dry goods, like, and that just wasn't us.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not what we do. It was a different mentality for the drivers that did it. It was a different mentality for the type of customer that you handled. In moving and storage, we always say that our drivers, our folks out there in the field, 90% of what we do is customer service. 10% of what we do is driving the stuff from A to B. Whereas when you flip the script to that 3PL, that logistics, hauling steel, hauling, beverages, or, boxes of, cookies or whatever, that's 90% driving, and that's 10%, customer service, because you're just you're shuttling stuff around basically. So that was it, and again, you would think like, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. It's a different kind of servicing. So that's what we did. And it's so crazy. And my business partner at the time and I mean, we laughed because we were like, we got into this different business lines, had a different name for it and everything, different logos, different shirts, different drops.
Wow. Oh,
and
you basically
we had
started another business.
Yeah. And
Okay.
but when it came time to shut it down, I mean, there was a cost to that. I mean, and we're like, we had to buy ourselves out of that business to shut it down,
Uh,
basically. You know what I mean?
uh-huh.
I mean, things you don't think about. But yeah, we had
Yeah.
to buy ourselves out of that business.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually leads me to another great question. How do you manage to think smart when you're in a pressure situation? Because, when you get into hard moments, especially if money's on the line, sometimes the smartest of us can get really stupid. So how do you manage to keep your toes on the ground while in crisis to figure out hard things?
Well, that's where it's who you have around you.
Mm-hmm.
Your team. I mean, like my wife and I are business partners. I mean, I lean on her for questions or advice or what her opinion is, and we run scenarios against each other. What would you do in this regard? What would you do in that regard? And then an even broader team is our management team.
Mm-hmm.
I always laugh. There was a point in time we had one location and everybody was in one place. Now we have 4 locations: Columbus, Raleigh, Charlotte, and Orlando. So now and that was a I guess a learning curve too, to go from where you could walk in somewhere and everybody's right here, where are they at? You're looking, to where you've got people that are, 500 miles away, 1,000 miles away, and you're hoping that everything is going, you get your finger on the pulse, but you're like, but where I was going with that though, is that we used to always, when we had just that one location and everybody was sitting around that one conference table, one day I said, hey, how many years have you been in this business? And they 10. How about you? 20. And so we were on the whiteboard. And as I was doing that, somebody was writing on the board, right? And then it was like 230. I was like, all right, we've got 230 years of moving experience in this room. Somebody in here is going to have an answer. You know what I'm saying? 100%. So we do, and I laugh today because now that number is a lot bigger, because I have, we have people and I mean, I've got people who've been with us for 10, 15, 20 years alone, so the point is to your question is when you have that tough decision and you say, well, I've got 300 years of experience around, at my fingertips. So I'm not going to just try to answer that question myself or, I'm going to ask the people, hey, what do you think we do? Because I have people that worked at other large organizations much larger than mine or some smaller, who may have, been in various management positions. And I would be foolish to not lean on their experience or their opinions and input to say, to give an idea of what they may have, when they saw that happen at their either prior employer or prior situation that they dealt with. And there's also a peer network. I've developed some really good friends in this industry. And I call them and they call me, and you that's another good thing. You talk about entrepreneurship. You've got to have the peer relationships. You've got to get out to the trade shows. You got to get out to the conferences because, you've got to get in that room with other owners, other entrepreneurs, and, make those connections. I mean, I'm somewhat flattered at times. I'll be honest with you, when I get a call out of the blue and someone's calling me from another company like myself, and maybe they're calling from California or Dallas or somewhere. Hey, I just want to run this by you. I got this situation. What would you do? I mean, that's very flattering in some regard because you're
absolutely,
because someone's calling you and I don't have the right. I mean, we're all trying to figure it out.
Right. As far as I can tell, this is what I would do, but it's art, not science. So
right. And I've done the same. So definitely, M&A, acquiring a business, starting a business, you got to get those peer relationships, go to those conferences, join those trade organizations, try to, find your mentors if you can. It's so valuable. I mean, it's so invaluable. And because because those people, a lot of people who have maybe moved on, sold their business, they love giving back like that. They
Absolutely.
love giving
Yep.
advice. They love helping you through a tough spot. If you've got like, should I do this? What do you think? I got this. I got option A or option B. Which one sounds? What do you think? How should I process these options? It's always good to have, that other person to bounce something off of.
Yeah, that's a good call. All right, we're wrapping up. I got a couple more questions for you. One is, and I love the fact that when I said the Q word, your brain was like, we don't compute the quit word. I want to ask you about mindsets. What mindsets, mantras, tools do you use to stay productive, to keep your mind right, to stay inspired? Because as an entrepreneur, I know myself, there are days when you are feeling it and it's feeling like you are a winner. You got some new contracts. And there are other days where you like, whose idea was this? And you remind yourself it was
Right.
yours.
Right.
So
Right.
while I can appreciate that you don't resonate with the word quit, you did resonate with the word, it was super challenging. So give me mindsets, mantras, whatever that help you get on track and stay on track when
Well,
it gets hard.
yeah.
Or to
I
avoid
mean,
there in the first.
what now? What you
Or
say?
to avoid getting to, those mental depths.
I tell myself and my wife and I say to each other all the time too, is if it was easy, everybody do it.
Right.
It's true. I
True.
mean, if it was, because you're right, there are those tough days. There's those days that, whether it's you got customer issues, you got this happening, you got to renew some kind of service. You're just like, wow, this is all happening at once. But yeah, if it was easy, everybody do it. I will say that being heavily in the service, we are in the customer service business. We're 10 toes down in customer service and what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my team, whether it's moving someone's office or moving their home, we are transitioning people in a big way. They talk about, the top 5 stressors in life. Obviously, death, divorce is up there. Moving is up in that top 5 as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So and I say all that to say, like, we don't downplay the fact that when we're moving someone's household,
Mm-hmm.
it's either because they're downsizing, a new job, could be a loss of a loved one. There's a reason why. It could be good things too. Positive things. Moving to a bigger house, moving to a warmer
Which is too
city.
stressful, as you know.
Yeah, but it's very stressful, and that person is basically living with our for that 5 to 7 days. If they're if we're moving them to Orlando or moving them to Phoenix, that 5 to 7 days that our drivers went in their home and grabbed their stuff. Like they're living with us, and we're living with them basically. But I say that to you to say, I was trying to set up the fact that how heavy we are in customer service, and a mantra that I've adopted from, and we've continued with this company, came from Eldon Ward, and something he used to always say, which was, do what's right and come what may. Do what's right, come what may. Right. And so Eldon was he was a strong manager, stern, strong entrepreneur, very well rounded man. But so that mantra that he lived by was that in customer service, we all know this. Everybody's not going to be happy you're going to have a disappointed customer.
Mm-hmm.
But what he decided he could live with is, because something goes wrong and someone says, I want it for free. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I can't give you a $5,000 move for. We did all this work. I understand that a picnic table got broken. I understand that. Okay, so I can't do the move for free. Men sweated, trucks ran down the highway for this to happen. Right, free is not an option, but a new picnic table is. What I'm just saying as an example, and so that was kind of his mindset. So doing what's right is, I'm going to replace that picnic table, and come what may, is they may be happy and they may not. But if
Yeah,
you did it, but as a business owner, entrepreneur, he could sleep at night knowing that he did what was right, and he hoped it would bring the right outcome.
love it, love it, love it. All right, I'm going to shift to personal. How do you stay well mentally, physically, emotionally in the journey of the wild, wild journey of success, which again, I always try to convey in every interview that I do with others. And when I'm just talking myself, is that, you know, when people look at people who've reached a certain level of success, the assumption is that it's not hard. And you and I both know that's not true. So how do you personally do your best? Because it's not always easy to stay well physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically in the midst of being a dad, being a leader, being an owner, and all the things.
Yeah, I mean, mental health and physical health is real. I mean, it's very real, and we see so many signs of it every day. Um, and and you know, stress and trauma is real. But I will say, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a wife who's also my business partner, and that's she pushes on me every day, that the importance of that. But definitely things like you know, you got to have your outlets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we exercise. You know, activities outside. You know, traveling. You know, it's important to, and it's not easy. I mean, I'll tell you, it's not that, as I say, work-life balance. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, and literally, as you know, as an entrepreneur, I mean, you could probably sit down on Monday at 7 a.m. and not leave the computer until 7 p.m. Friday. And you know, there's that much that you could be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You could be doing, but but and I know you're big about, you know, time and what your time management, you know, on your platform. And it's true. Sometimes you just have to say, this have to wait till tomorrow. I mean, just have to wait, you know, because I got, you know, we're going to go to dinner or
because I'm not going to kill myself, and I also love my life and my wife.
Right. Your kids want to go to Target or whatever they, you know, go get some light, you know, you just you know, it's just got to wait, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be okay, you know. So like I said, I mean, but I do keep a good routine. For me personally, I mean, my physical exercising, you know, 3 to 5 times a week, 4 on average. I mean, that's my exhaust pipe. That's me blowing the carbon out. Is, you know, getting in the gym, you know, I have a trainer I go to and stuff, you know, class, you know, trainer we go to. That helps a lot, because, you know, there are those tough days, and just helps to get in a different environment. You know, so that's something I definitely stay very, very well grounded. Diet and exercise. You know, there's only one of you. I mean, you can't. I mean, AI is great, but it can't replace us yet.
We are not 3D printing whole bodies yet.
Right.
They are 3D organs at this time, or whatever.
You know, I will say, you know, my wife, you know, she helped me. I went on. Actually, my father-in-law helped me get on a journey. I went on a very, you know, a weight loss journey that, you know, and not that I mean, I lost 36 pounds, and you know, that made a big difference in my life as far as health and, you know, feeling better, moving better, fatigue. I mean, all those little things, how you eat.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people sometimes dismiss, you know, you can't dismiss that, the importance of, you know, pay attention to what you're eating. You know, I mean, everybody they like to make that morning stop at whatever their favorite, you know, coffee spot is, and get that, you know, give me the cup of, give me mocha this, cappuccino this, with a frappa lapa, whatever, with the whipped cream on top and the sprinkles and the caramel drizzle, right? I mean, but that's not good. That's not good for you, you know. Yeah. I mean, I just hate to. I mean, maybe once a week, okay, treat yourself.
Yeah.
But I mean, we all know there's that same cars in that drive-through every morning.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do that, you know. You got to feel better. You got to feel better, you know? So feeling better from the inside out is
Mhm.
very important, you know? So that's just some of the things I try to stay disciplined about in that regard.
Well, and thank you. I will be seeing you next week, and I appreciate that you. I'm in competition with that very thing that you're committed to well-being. So I appreciate you making an exception, and looking forward to seeing you next week. My last question for you is the tagline in Achieve Global or at Achieve Global is cultivating meaningful success together. What does meaningful success mean to you?
What does meaningful success mean for me? Did you make a difference? I mean, you know, just did you make an impact? Did you impact? Meaningful success is, you know, did you impact someone's lives? Quick story. I know we're about to go, but quick story. I mean, I've had people at this company. I've had gentlemen that I hired at the time were living in a van, living in a car, and I saw and employing them. I saw them progress to, you know, getting an apartment, you know, getting themselves set up, getting independence, maybe even getting then into a house, you know, meaningful success. I mean, that's meaningful success to me, is that, you know, we've been able to employ hundreds of people over the years and give them those opportunities that they can do that. I mean, that's really, that's my value, you know. I mean, I know that we don't, you know, my wife and I, I mean, you think when you sit back and think about it, and you know, anyone that employs anybody, you are putting food on tables every week. You're putting food on tables every week. That's what you're doing. You know, you're helping the electricity stay on. So, you know, we don't take that lightly. I don't take that lightly.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
appreciate that.
so that's meaningful success to me.
I love it. All right. So before we go, tell everyone where they can learn more about E.E. Ward and where can we get a shirt?
E.E. Ward, so www.eeward.com. We're on the internet, or you can search, just Google, go to the Google machine and search E.E. Ward. We should pop up. I'm sure we do pop up. And then on the website, there's a way to get a t-shirt. You know, there's a link to get a t-shirt on the website. And our phone, we have multiple locations, but you know, our main phone number is 614-298-8414. Will ring into all of our locations across the country, or like I said, eeward.com.
Oh, all right. Love it. You all make sure you get a shirt. And can I tell them soon?
Yeah, soon.
Soon. There's a book coming, which is going to have the amazing story. You guys heard a lot of it today, but there's a book coming with pictures, some of which I've seen, which are just amazing, especially if you live in Columbus and know that area and can actually see some of the buildings that existed back there then, some do still now. So be on the lookout for the book that is coming out about E.E. Ward and the journey of generational success. And lastly, if you want to learn more about Achieve Global, you can visit us at achieve.global. Thank you so much for your time, Brian. I look forward to seeing you in real life next week.
Thank you.
Take care.